The Drought or Kakala Road winds through the hills of Karamoja sub-region at the northeastern tip of the country, which is rich in mineral wealth. A drought has enveloped this area. As rivers and streams trickle, leaves and plants wither, cracks widen in the barren land as the golden fingers of the sun blaze across this wind-swept area. However, there's a greater danger lurking in the dark shadows of these savanna grasslands. In Rupa Sub-County, a flashpoint area in Moroto district, heavily armed soldiers at this detach returned from a patrol. By March, the UPDF estimated that about 309 cattle rustlers had been killed in Karamoja in a new cycle of insurgency. A conflict spanning decades, the Karimojong lost chunks of land through pacification, redrawing boundaries between Kenya and Sudan that left much of their grazing regions outside Uganda, and their expulsion from newly formed game parks, reserves, and protected forests. They were forced to sell their livestock, and it was also confiscated to pay taxes imposed by British imperialists. During the Amin regime, more land was parceled to establish the Moroto Army Barracks at the foothills of Mount Moroto. Unlicensed arms continued to slip through the neighboring porous entry points from as far as the Horn of Africa, Kenya, and South Sudan.
Now, when you have porous borders, just like I said, the attacks in Kobebe were done by the Turkana. Who can actually stop another body coming from another country to another country if it is not the security agencies? Now, we are basically saying we are not safeguarding the borders. We are not closing those porous borders where the guns are coming. I can tell you for a fact, Emma, there is a lot of trade in guns now. People are harming so that they can actually protect themselves, because the protection they actually see in government is not coming.
Biggest factor escalating the insecurity is the lack of coordination and communication. Because in most cases where you see the raids happening, the community tells you that first of all here we appreciate the government has promoted the disarmament and many people have returned the guns. However, we are not secure because our neighbors in Kenya still have the guns, and whenever they come, we are vulnerable. And the soldiers who are there to protect us, in most cases, they have not protected us. So what do? We end up running, and these people take away our animals.
Once in the hands of locals, these guns have fueled banditry, clan rivalry, death, and despair. Without proper services, the rustlers continue to search for pastures and water outside this area, tormenting the neighboring sub-regions of Teso, Lango, Acholi, Sebei, and Bugisu. This afternoon, the brigade commander has received a tip about a gun that has been recovered in one of the areas where they recently recovered 9 other guns. We follow this vehicle as it snakes through the dirt roads. As we get closer, the commanding officer is aware of the perils that lie ahead. He asks for more reinforcement as more heavily armed soldiers are deployed. Upon arrival, the soldiers alight the pickup truck and take strategic positions to counter any threat at this hamlet. It is revealed that a young Turkana herdsman brought this gun to Kobebe Dam in Rupa Sub-County.
Kenya.
This gun was brought from Kenya, the place called Orum. Because of the dry season, these people Turkana migrate from Kenya to come to take water here in Uganda and grass. This gun is for that man called a chair. And finally we leave them after warning them. So
let us first conclude this operation. Let us first get the guidelines from above. Your people will be back.
This area is not far away from Lotisan sub-county, where Turkana warriors recently killed 3 geologists from the Energy and Mineral Development Ministry alongside 2 UPDF escorts. The army has implored the Kenyan government to repatriate the suspects accused of killing the geologists who were picking soil samples to be able to stand trial.
By the criminals, we are able to report that these weapons have been recovered, the PK and the SMG, and they are across with our counterparts in Orum, Kenya, the Kenyan government police, and the other suspects. We are still pursuing them.
But the Kenyan government is yet to comply with the request. The UPDF has since then occupied the grazing fields at Kobebe Dam and ordered Turkana pastoralists to stop grazing their cows in this area. At Moroto Barracks, a meeting between the 3rd Division Commander, Brigadier Joseph Balikudembe, and his commanders has just ended. Balikudembe says the army is committed to bringing to an end this new cycle of violence.
And we recently, in 1 week ago, we recently mounted cordon and search operations and hunting them in the wilderness, in the grazing areas. And we so far arrested 8 Turkanas with 6 guns. We arrested 12 Mathenicos so far we have been interrogating them, and we have 2 guns from that group. The gangsters that have been terrorizing other communities. We have not stopped at that. We have moved in Kotido, in Nabiratuk, and arrested the criminal gang heads that have been destabilizing this sub-region.
Situation getting out of hand. And this we have actually had a lot of engagements with even the UPDF on the 11th of February, just immediately after our election. We had this meeting in the division headquarters, where all these top brass of the army were. And we actually pointed to them. If you have thin on the ground, if you are not able to guarantee protection, if people are being are restless, they cannot be able to spend good nights, as it were. There is attack every other time. Then there is a problem, and that problem is only guaranteed by the state arm. The security is supposed to be guaranteed by the UPDF. So once that is not done, even our mobilization of communities does not guarantee them that safety.
However, the contours of the conflict, he admits, are complex and revealed that plans are underway to increase the number of troops in the sub-region. I also put to him concerns that some of his soldiers have been accused of human rights abuses and complicity in cattle thefts.
And we don't deny that in our own we have some errant soldiers that normally connive with even the community outside there and steal the cows that are already impounded. But we have been arresting them. Once we get information that a cow has not been found at the detachment, then the detached commander is putting to task. And we have been arresting them. We have been arresting not only the soldiers, but even those that they connive with.
Commercialization of this particular conflict. And this commercial element, again, is aided by the security agencies. Honestly, if there are directives to stop the movement of cattle at night, and these roadblocks are manned by the UPDF, you tell me, what is happening? Is there no complicity? And of course, our people are scared to the skin. You cannot deal with an operational commander, for instance, because at daytime they will actually be able to come for you. So that is why we are actually calling for an audit of the operational command as from 2019 through to today. And you will actually be able to see that a lot of things will actually be unraveled.
For instance, in Kabong district that borders Kotido and the Turkana in Kenya, only 4 out of 34 kraals have been spared of raids. Some of the kraals are adjacent to the army barracks meant to offer protection.
Telling you, even if a UPDF is in the middle of the forest anywhere in this world or in this country or wherever we are doing our work and commits an offense, he went there either by foot or he was also transported to do the job, but that criminal, if he commits an offense, he will be picked by the helicopter to come and answer the charges as quickly as possible.
Balikudembe replaced Brigadier Julius Viriabarema in December 2007 after a local defense unit officer killed the Rupa Sub-County chairperson Dan Apollo Loyomo, a brother to the former Director General of External Security Organization, David Pukol. He was killed in Nakadeli Parish, Rupa Sub-County, where he had reportedly gone to settle a dispute over impounded cattle. But the details of his killing remain murky, though the army took disciplinary action against the culprits.
Now, because of the way the commander of that detach in Kidepo, the way he actually handled it, was that there was an attempt to make sure that those cows actually disappear. And because the LC3 chairperson was firm on that, the idea was, there's a lot of rumor that he was actually eliminated because he was actually going to expose some of the underhand workings for those cows that were recovered to have actually disappeared.
The cells at Moroto Barracks are holding some of the most notorious cattle rustlers.
But he had returned and is one of the criminals who escalated this situation. Even he confesses so. And he says it is a stun that made him to go back. That he did it, he thought that we may not know it. But I'm happy to note that we have arrested those criminal gangs in different districts.
We seek for protection and security. Protection of lives and protection of property. The innocent people are actually dying. Only today, they are burying 2 other people in Namuru Akongani in the park. They were actually shot in their own house.
Peter Lokiru Achuchu, who had earlier on escaped from the Moroto 3rd Division quarter guard in 2009, has been arrested several times.
What we did, we had previously profiled some criminal elements that have continuously disturbed the peace of the Karamojong. For the first thing we did was to look at the pattern of their movement, and we found out that those who had surrendered the guns had returned, surrendered voluntarily, had returned to raids. For example, Achuchu. You have heard of somebody called Achuchu who was in prison for 10 years. He surrendered 2 guns, but this time around we have rearrested him and recovered 4 guns from his.
It was the army which was actually able to put the question to rest. Why would you now say it is communities and communities are left to their own? You know, you are blaming a victim. You actually need to deal with the criminal and secure an innocent civilian.
Another group of cattle rustlers being held here are Turkana and Matheniko youngsters. Some of them were recently found in possession of guns and they await trial before the army court-martial. Many of the previously active mining areas have been abandoned. In Lopedo, Lodiko Sub-County, outside Kabong town, many small-scale and artisanal miners have fled this area in fear of marauding Turkana warriors. Could there be a nexus between insecurity and mineral wealth in Karamoja?
When you grab a land, you are also causing insecurity. The way you come and remove people's land without their consent in it. Then you say that being sent by government. The question is that you have caused already land insecurity.
However, the Bokora County MP plays down this fear.
Held by individuals, the exclusive prospecting licenses for some of those areas. It is true we have that. And there are certain areas that cannot be reached by common man. You can't even be able to graze closer to it. One of it is the Sun Belt in Rupa, where you cannot be able to access the area, whether you have, unless you have a clearance. Now we have all that. We have resources across the entire region. We have the oil deposits in the Devastation Mountains through Tunapak. We have a lot of resources. But I am one of the people who is so slow to be able to take that notion. There is a lot of insecurity now, and insecurity is more related to livestock. It is about that mismanagement. The discourse about minerals can actually come later.
An airborne geological and geophysical survey mapping of Karamoja at a cost of 86 billion shillings. With large tracts of land under the threat of violence and rustling, it's not clear yet when this assignment will be accomplished. A 2011 survey found that the sub-region contains over 50 minerals, including gold, limestone, uranium, marble, graphite, gypsum, iron, wolfram, nickel, copper, cobalt, lithium, and tin. However, for every ton of mineral that leaves this part of the country in large tracts, the equivalent is a life of misery and ruin. For every mineral license doled out to investors, including briefcase companies, droves of children escape this wretched part of the country for the city where they crowd the streets with their begging bowls. Karamoja is not entirely neglected. New paved highways have been constructed to connect these districts. But it leaves much to be desired. Many of Karamoja's sprawling mines appear like labor camps, where locals spend days hacking at the earth tucked away beneath the rugged landscape. Scores of men, women and children dig inside the bowels of the mines without any protective gear, inhaling toxic fumes. The payment for the labor is a pittance, usually too small to fend for their families. Often it's spent in the mines on cheap potent gin, which poses health risks to locals. Those who work here are largely illiterates and don't know much about the scramble for mineral wealth worth billions of shillings, led by multinational corporation capital. It's what an official from Resource Rights Africa, a local watchdog organization based in Karamoja, calls the elite capture.
School, and these are community representatives who have gone to school, eventually took over that the organization of Rupa Trust, and the community feel that those have been able to benefit themselves and they have left the community. That lesson is what we are learning, that yes, we might have the allies we are engaging with, but we have to ensure that even the local person down there is engaged in the efforts. And that's what we are doing in, for example, Tapach, Katkekele, we have what we call Naitatapeth Land Association. This association, together with the Catholic Diocese, we have built their capacity, and it is formed, yes, it has the elites, but also has the local people, the real local people who really follow up and understand to avoid the issue of the elites taking over and engaging with the company, then benefiting alone.
They received Rupa, so we have learned a lesson from Rupa, that if these investors they come in a tricky way, they will not take our land. We discover how, that was a learning way we learned from them. When they come, they own it. But here we are telling them no. An example like Loyoro, where there is marbles. I see many investors, they are take care, which is what they are coming. We are telling them, okay, if you come, you can explore. But all the benefits should remain here. Even the factory should be put in Loyoro. And the community should benefit from that.
Many remain enveloped in poverty as the minerals are carted off towards Kampala, and others are shipped outside the country. Nobody knows how much of this mineral wealth leaves this poorest part of the country. Many parts of Karamoja appear like wastelands as the environment continues to be ravaged, as this creates more food insecurity. Water sources are contaminated as a result of mining activities, and gaping pits have turned into death traps.
A very big issue in Karamoja, and given the mining activities that are many, if we do not come up as stakeholders to see that we support the communities to protect the environment, filling the pit holes, ensuring that they plant the trees, ensuring that they use the resources sustainably, these minerals are going to be exhausted. Then what happens later? Because when the animals now don't have the water, they don't have grazing areas, and it's because of the challenges that are coming with the environment.
This is the pent-up frustration that has elicited strong condemnation from leaders in Karamoja, including the former ethics minister, the late Reverend Father Simon Lokodo, who advocated for a commission of inquiry into the mining activities he says created a new segregative system. Father Lokodo seems to have fired a veiled salvo at the Chinese-owned Sunbelt Company, which sits on 7.4 square meters of land and has been mining marble in Rupa sub-county for export. The company, whose activities are quite opaque, enjoys protection from the army, which has established a roadblock towards the mining site. The owners of Dow Marble, another firm granted a license to mine marble in Rupa sub-county, fled the country after debts piled up, including a loan from DFCU Bank. NTV was able to estimate that about 3.7 million acres have been parceled out for these mining activities. An acre is equivalent to the size of a football pitch. Like the DR Congo, Karamoja suffers from the resource curse paradox, with many of its households living in abject poverty.